Well, welcome everybody. We got
Uncle Ruckus
we
in
got
the
some
house.
stuff to discuss today. And if you understand what's going to take place, you'll understand the things I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. But today we're going to give the floor to the white man.
Ain't
The
gonna
white
white
man's
man.
going to have this show.
The great white hope.
Great white hope.
The great white hope.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with this. This is all the melanated ones up here.
You know, that white boy
Uncle
right there,
Ruckus
his credit
today.
score higher than all of ours put together.
I doubt that. I mean, I got redneck black people credit score. What are you
Listen
talking about?
here. We're going to hand the show over to the man, the white man, just like the white Jesus. Everybody know that's the only Jesus there is, white Jesus. But don't go away. We'll be right back to discuss Africa and Russia.
Yeah, please stay tuned.
Right. Holy Jesus,
y'all! Look, listen. We said what we said, and we meant it. Okay. Today's really going to be the coy show.
I'm gonna try as long as
The
we can let
decoy
me.
show. He's been doing most of the research on this. I mean, I know something. Bro knows something. Lee knows something, but the white man knows it all. But
he's a walking encyclopedia.
For some reason, white people are always into geopolitics, right?
The white savior knows all of it. He knows everything.
He knows.
In the meantime, the two Uncle Ruckuses on the top going to be mostly quiet until the white savior is done with his.
So is the white adjacent guy.
Most y'all on the bottom. Maybe Marley should change it up and put them up top where they belong.
No, I ain't giving him that much power. Come on now.
I
still have some decency about
me. Yeah, me too. I'd be mad as hell.
I'll give you some power, but I ain't giving you all the power now.
Not white power.
Not white power. This is still black power. I'm gonna let some go for a little bit so you can have it.
No.
So tell us, Master Coy, about the issue going on with Russia and Africa. And this summit they had, and what exactly it entailed, since you've been studying it. For it.
The summit. Okay, so just a little context. I mean, it's not just the summit. I mean, the summit is just kind of like the cherry on top of the cake of what's going on in Africa right now. But like the whole geopolitics of it all is that certain West African states are sick of Europe raping their land. That's really what it comes down to. Is they're tired of being pillaged by neocolonialism. Especially that of France. France has been the worst perpetrator of neocolonialism in West Africa, and they've had enough. So, like, how is it? And this is coming from their leaders. How is it that we have the most mineral-rich resources in the world, but yet we're the poorest nations in the world? Right?
Or at least we have the poorest population.
Yeah.
The countries themselves are very rich, but the populace is very
the
poor.
Population is poor. It's like how do they have all the resources but then have nothing to show for it? And that's what it really comes down to, is they're just getting sick of the West pulling their bullshit. Is what it really comes down to. And so Russia just happens to be there to pick up the pieces. And that's really what it is. It's opportunism. Russia is coming in and saying, "Hey, we're gonna forgive some of your debt." Right? Like $23 billion of their debt. We're just gonna wipe away. Forgiveness, all of it. We're not even going to ask money back. They don't need it, right? They're doing okay. Their economy, even with all the sanctions, are fine. They are doing just fine, right?
Yeah, fine.
As much as the West want to tell you that Russia's on their heels or losing, they ain't losing. They're not losing at all.
Nope.
Yeah, they're doing all right, especially with BRICS coming out. It's like there are more and more nations joining BRICS and getting off the American petrodollar and onto the gold standard again. That is the threat. And this is the reason why ECOWAS, which is the West African NATO, is getting basically pushed into invading Niger. But then now they're on their back foot saying, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to hold off on that. So the West is losing their power. And this is one of the things that this video is really good, just because it shows the sentiment of what the leaders and the coups have been talking about.
Since there's not much time left for my intervention, let me pay tribute to our peoples that fight gives all the evil, glory to our people, respect to our people, and victory to our people. Thank you, comrades.
That's the right one. Anyway,
there was another one. Different. Wow.
Yeah, no, there was another one where it basically he was saying that, like I had said in the intro, is like they've had enough of them taking over everything, and that we're kicking out Europe, specifically France, out of our nation, and we're going to stop imports and exports of gold and oil, or not gold and uranium.
So this is essentially what the West has always been afraid of. More so what China in initial first phases of days were afraid of, which is why they went in and got as much resources and hands on it and purchase power as they could in certain countries, the mineral rich ones specifically.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one of the videos that I wanted to bring up. This is the one. There was another one of that same guy, but I thought I had to.
Well, I know this guy.
Oh yeah, I remember this one.
Today, the pound of Britain is one of the strongest currencies. Why? Backed by gold. But when you go to Britain, there is no gold mine. But they've got the biggest gold reserves all over the world. Because they come take it here, they came and stole it here, and they've stored it there. And that's what makes them unique. There is no France. There is no France without Africa. The day Africa liberates itself from France, France will collapse as a country, because France, it is based on everything African. They don't have anything to offer to themselves. They keep on taking from Africa. So please, let's make sure that we plow the idea of African unity. We may not be there when Africa gets one president, but we'll be the ones who have planted that idea amongst our children, and our children will salute us forever.
Yeah, this is the same guy that's wanting a united Africa, like having a United States of Africa.
He also wanted to write genocide too, though.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't say that he's exactly the best out there. But what he's saying is actually coming true right now. Here's another video that came out today.
So,
talking about the French prime ministers are getting antsy because of what's happening in Africa.
Is he pushing for like a is this guy pushing for like his own African Union the same way the European Union is like? Is that what?
No, he's talking about like actual continental like unification,
like to make it U.S., to make it like the U.S. Instead of having countries in Africa, it'd be states.
That's a good idea.
How will that work?
They have to unite. They have to agree to it.
Yeah.
So that each country doesn't have their own sovereignty. They just like a president would be, then have one president that dictates for the whole country itself, and it would be the country of Africa instead of the continent.
The only little
cultural,
the only little stickler to that whole thing is that there are certain minorities in Africa they don't like, and they don't have a problem with massacring. So.
Right.
Yeah, nobody wants to see people get massacred, but Africa's been under the West and colonialism for centuries. And at some point, America should have saw this coming. The West should have saw this coming. All these European nations should have saw this coming. But they kept that thumb on Africa, and now they're tired of it.
Let's not forget, too, that Africa has always been in the process of destroying each other, too.
Oh, yeah. That's
the unity. The unity thing is a great idea. But let's not get it twisted the same way that you would not have expected Navajo and the rest of the Indians to get along because they were all scalping each other. Don't think that, we have this grand idea of unity in Africa, that all the culture mixes over there are just going to gel. It's going to be bloodshed long before that. And all they will do is move the Western oppression to African on African oppression. That's all it's going to end up being. So
I can see that.
They can hope.
Here's the little dirty secret that people seem to forget about the world, is that unification doesn't happen unless it's through conquest and bloodshed, especially if it's multicultural and it's multiple tribes. Like the only way you unite a people is through bloodshed, period.
It didn't work for America. It didn't work for us.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't. It may look
Then
good.
what do you call Western expansion up until the eradication of certain Indian tribes? That's exactly what that was. That was land and conquest. Bloodshed.
I'm saying bloodshed does not unite a country. Our country is not united.
It subdues the other half.
Yeah,
long
it
enough
doesn't
for
unite, but
ruling.
it does create the union. That's
the
what
illusion
I mean.
of unity.
Yes, an illusion.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not a big fan of these United States. I like state sovereignty personally.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of that.
But I'm just saying
all
is that
operate it separately.
Any sort of unification always comes at the cost of conquest and bloodshed. Period.
Yeah.
Like that's when
sense.
you hear unification, it's good, but then it's bad because you know that it can only be done through force.
One way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's only one way. Same thing with communism. It can only be done through one way, and that's through force.
Yeah. They're trying.
It's the same thing.
We're trying.
So anyway, so here's a report talking about Macron.
Here is your latest Africa news. French MPs in fear of the death of France in Africa asks Macron to take action via letter. 94 ministers from all parties in the French parliament have called upon President Emmanuel Macron to clarify his position on the African continent amid concerns over France's diminishing influence in the West Central African and Sahel region. This request came in a letter published a few days ago by the French newspaper Le Figaro, questioning Macron on France's role in Africa. The letter cites a laundry list of countries that have started rejecting France's influence, French forces and French companies, such as Niger, Mali, the Central African Republic, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Algeria, and Tunisia, as the list keeps growing. The letter to Macron goes on to describe French disappointments in North Africa, remarking that Algeria's president, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, blows hot and cold, sometimes speaking of rapprochement and an official visit, and other times calling France the Great Satan, responsible for all the evils of the Algerian people. Likewise, the letter notes, President Kais Saied of Tunisia is turning more towards the United States, the EU, and the Arab world, and less to France, which has lost its privileged status. The letter also notes the significant decline in the use of the French language relative to English across the African continent. The signatories to the letter arrogantly suggest that Macron should review its so-called France's vision of Africa and its ties with France. Now, when Africa, a friendly continent, no longer seems to understand France and is increasingly contesting the former colonizers' role and its presence. The signatories conclude the letter noting that they are not resigned to France's gradual disappearance from the entire continent. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video.
So this is what they're afraid of. And some of the countries have already gone and eliminated French as their national language. Like completely, like we're not using it anymore. Like they keep pulling away from France. And the biggest thing that this really comes down to is the fact that Africa itself is not exporting uranium and gold to France anymore.
Good.
Like they're like, we're done. We're not going to export that stuff to you anymore. Like period.
Good.
And the majority of their electricity comes from the uranium that they export from these African nations.
Again, it was bound to happen, and the West needs to learn their lesson, and sometimes we have to learn it the hard way. You know, every country wants to be sovereign. You know, you get America all the time when something happens in Africa, they try to, strong arm them and say, if you don't do this, we will do this. But you're halfway across the world. How are you going to dictate what goes on here? So now that they're getting pushback, which should have been expected, a lot of these countries are upset. Why is France kind of upset that Africa's pushing back? Africa's their own nation. Why is France upset about it? They should just, if they told you to leave, that's like me kicking someone out my house.
Right.
There ain't no questions asked. See you later. They should just say, okay,
it's our house. Yeah,
we're out. Okay, you want us out? We're gone. But no, they're trying to fight, and the reason they're fighting is for what? We all know what it's for: resources.
So France is basically an international squatter in Africa. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah. They've been
every country globally that takes any resources from Africa, at least the last 100 years or so, they've done it by usurpation, either by threats or by war or by enabling the place that they want the resources from enabling the enemies of that place with more weaponry, and then going to the place that they want the resources from and saying, we can protect you. So and this is exactly what America did during the first Bush regime. Okay. And well, it started really in Carter, but Bush really was the one that solidified China's grip on African resources. And he also was the one that really, really pushed for weapons to be sold to a lot of these factions in Africa, while also going to the people that he sold the weapons to, enabling their fighting, going to their enemies and trying to be the defender. So what both end up doing was paying America for weapons and protection. And the ones that you gave protection to, they gave resources. And the ones that you gave weapons to, they gave resources. And you had both of them over a barrel because you were the one perpetuating the actual conflict. Now, hear me out. It's not like the conflict wouldn't have existed without America. We just made the conflict carry on a whole lot longer, because if all things being equal, the conflict would have self-resolved by death. One side would have conquered the other, and that would have been the end of the story. But if you keep the war going, you keep the resources flowing in, and you also keep both sides content enough to keep fighting. So it's a let's just be honest, it was a great strategy for the powers that be. France did the same thing. They just did it more diplomatically.
I don't know about that. They kept them under the same way the U.S. does with the petrodollar, right? They would give them, France would give them their own like francs.
Right, that's diplomatic. They didn't fight them. They did it through a different coercion means. They didn't supply weaponry. That was America's job.
No,
we were the warmongers. Yeah, we were the warmongers, though. We're the ones that really had all. If you go right now, I bet you if you go right now to nearly 80% of the so-called rebels in Africa, it would be American weapons. It wouldn't be French.
There's actually a video. This is from March of Matt Gaetz talking to a Marine general about this in AFRICOM, and how it's kind of funny how the majority, not a majority, but it's like basically all of the coups that happen in Africa are directly linked to people we've trained.
Chair, now recognized gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates, for 5 minutes.
General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and equip missions. So just ballpark, in the last decade, how many Africans has the United States military trained and equipped?
Congressman, I don't have that figure. I can get that figure for you.
Ballpark, just, how many?
Congressman, it would be a wild guess, right?
Seems like something we should know, right?
Over the years, we have trained a substantial number, especially in the Gulf of Guinea states, but including
like more than 10,000.
It is more than 10,000.
More than 50,000.
I'd say we're reaching around 50,000 at least.
And what percentage of the people we've trained end up participating in insurrections or coups against their own government?
Very small number, Congressman. Very small number.
So what percentage do you think?
I'd say probably less than 1%.
But it does happen.
The IMEC program is in force, and we've pushed a significant number through our schools across the.
And what data sets do you track to arrive at the conclusion that less than 1% of the roughly 50,000 that we've trained have participated in coups? Because it'd be like about 500, about 1% of 50,000.
Congressman, you may have that information. I don't at this time.
Well, I know there are some, right? Like go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, and this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him? In Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values. Respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup.
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We
Leading
stress
coups
core
are in our
values.
curriculum?
We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
Civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso?
Pretty easy question.
Who we trained?
Holistically, we teach
That's a yes or no question.
Core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 90 over 99 percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And when I wonder how many people it takes to plan a coup. I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1% number because there's no data set you track. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by the Intercept.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Yeah. Question, isn't it?
Core values.
Congressman, our curriculum harvests core values.
There you go.
And also to be able to embolden these countries
to
for
fight
a representative democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
We'll continue with our persistence in assuring
but do you think it's
that
working?
they harbor democratic norms, democratic values.
Just a moment ago, you said we shared core values with
communist values.
Dumbuya. Yeah. You said that just moments ago in response to my question, and his core value seems to be leading a coup. So I don't think it's stuck. I think we should at least know how many countries we train the coup plotters in. How many is too many? Because clearly 2 is not too many, and I think we could use our resources far more effectively.
Bro, go first. I want to hear.
So
I have also a little tidbit of info.
All right, so
go ahead, bro.
It goes all the way back to, let's start at Charlie Wilson's war, right? Remember Charlie Wilson, the first Afghan, Russia invaded Afghan. A lot of those fighters, those Taliban fighters, Mujahideen, they were trained by Americans. A lot of Americans trained those people how to use the weapons, how to, fight tactically. And we were fighting those same guys in the invasion, a lot of those guys. Yeah. And then when I was in Iraq the first time in 2003, our job, I was part of this military training team. Our job was to train the then disbanded Iraqi army, and they were going to rebuild them. And it was called the New Iraqi Army. So we used to take them out to this military base out near the Iranian border, way out there. And we were training these guys exactly how we train our people, teaching them tactics, teaching them core values, teaching them all this stuff. Those same guys, when we trained them, turned around and were fighting us on the other side.
Yeah.
Same guys. And they were going back with the training and teaching the Taliban what they learned. So I get, I get where Matt Gaetz is saying. So what these guys do, they'll put people in there and they have to pass some bull crap screening tests. They'll pass it. They'll learn our weaponry. They'll learn our tactics. They'll learn how we talk on the radio. They'll learn. We teach them all that stuff. And then they go back and they teach the fighters. So now you got people on the other side fighting almost exactly like you fight. And then they build like these coups and they attack government buildings based off what we taught them. Yeah. They're using it on their own government. So it happens, man.
So Lee?
And here's the crazy part. So I kind of did some light math because, Asian. And he said that less than 1% of 50,000 trained individuals were installed, at least in Africa, doing these missions. Well, if you do the math, 1% of 50,000 is 5,000 people. There's 54 countries in Africa. And so if you do a rough calculation, that's about roughly 91 operatives per country in Africa who can subvert the entire nation to do X, Y, and Z. Coup, for instance. 91 available. 91. That's all you need to overthrow the government. For just one country. That's crazy to me.
Most of these guys are already in positions of power in the military to begin with.
Yes.
Right. So like they're training these guys that are already leaders with people. You only need 1, 2, maybe 10 who are in positions of power to convince their subordinates to do what they want. And there you have a coup. You only need a handful of people. I mean, come on. Look, the CIA with a handful of people assassinated a sitting president. Okay, like it's not that hard.
Yeah, we do it. We can do it with 12 people. But another thing, there's something else that used when I was in the military. It's called School of the Americas, right? School of the Americas was at Fort Benning, Georgia. Fort Benning, Georgia was the home of the infantry at that time. School of the Americas was, they used to bring foreign troops, a lot of them from Africa, generals, sergeant majors, and so on and so on, to train in the way the U.S. military does stuff. And they learn everything from logistics to tactics to all this stuff. They come there, they train, they stay on our base, and then we send them back to their country after they're done. They go to our Sergeant Major's Academy. So they're embedded in our military, learning everything we know just to take it back, get a kickback, get some money to teach the guerrillas and the people that want to take over the country. They teach them the same tactics, and this is, you get stuff like this.
I mean, it's the same thing in Afghanistan.
Yeah, same thing.
Where we were training the ANA and ANP, and the ANP were some of the dirtiest, corrupt people in the entire nation that were just helping the Taliban anyway. But we spent all of that tax money training these people for them to shoot us in the back.
Yep.
It was insane. Like the amount of trillions of dollars we wasted on Afghanistan and Iraq training these people just for them to shoot us in the back is insane.
True state.
It goes absolutely against every notion of what we were trying to do there. I have no idea why we were doing that to begin with. I don't think anybody that has served now could tell you why the hell we were training these people. It didn't do anything. It didn't help anybody.
It did, though.
It was insane.
It helped multiple people. And I think this
only
is the problem.
Certain people.
No, multiple. Here's why. I'm creating a division of a division. So if I can support the enemy of my enemy, I can distract both and keep the resources away from their attention. Okay? Whether or not they attack my own military, they're not attacking the one sending the military out.
Yeah.
They're only attacking my meat wagon, my Trojan horse. Whether we like it or not, military men are fodder. They've always been fodder. And so for the most part, it's gone from miniature fodder to large scale. So if I help you to go out and be a military soldier, why do you think when you guys come back, you don't get any real resources? Because you're not important to the industrial machine that is the military, not men and women of the military. The military will allow you to come back and commit suicide, be homeless, and die on the streets. They have no problem with that because they were hoping that you'd have died in combat. So they send you over there to train the enemy that they are making deals with in the back door. They know they're going to come back and fight you. The only reason they're okay with that is so that it can continue a perpetual war. Now, they can always come back and be like that bumbling idiot before Congress and say, well, we have our stance that we stick. We can't control what they do, but you are controlling what they do because you are dealing with very specific leaders, giving them the inside scoop, sending them out. They do what they were supposed to do, which is why they came to you for training to begin with. Their training was never to protect the military soldiers of the U.S. It was to protect the interest of the industrial machine. This has never been about the U.S. soldier. The U.S. soldier has always been fodder. If you look at how it was in World War I and II, there is no reason. Okay, let's just look at Normandy. Okay. If you were a military-minded person and looking at that execution of that beach arrival, do you consider that intelligent? Would you have considered landing on the beach like that intelligent? No. It was not intelligent, but it wasn't supposed to be intelligent. It was supposed to be a call to fear. It was supposed to make everyone going into war be like, oh, we are going to fight. Look what they did to our comrades, our brethren. It's to hype up the next wave coming behind them to go and do the exact same thing. They didn't care. You didn't go out equipped. You went out onto an open field and you knew there were people in the hills firing at you. That was the dumbest approach to any military strategy ever, and no one looked at it and thought it was intentional. But it was intentional. Just like this. We trained the Afghans, we trained the African military, we trained the Taliban. And they all come back and do what? What they were planned to do. Create more war. And the more war you create, the more industry you get because you're getting resources from the people that they're attacking by your dollar. Now, when people look at this, they're not going to think, oh, Africa is benefiting by leaving the Western ideals. They're going to look at it as though Africa is trying to strike out on their own and they're being independent, but they're not seeing the real deal here. The real deal is that while Africa is making deals to remove its resources from certain countries, they're going to leave themselves in a very big lurch, which is internal destruction of themselves. And we are more than happy to let it happen. We're looking forward to it because what that's going to leave is a vacuum for us to go in and take more resources, which is why America is not stepping in to say anything much about it. Do you see us jumping at the bit to stop them from joining with Russia, except for saying, give us some LGBTQ stuff? No, they're not stopping it. They know what's going to happen. The end result will be the demise of Africa. They're not going to unite as a country. They're going to implode.
Yeah.
So we're happy with that.
Here's another reason why the conflict, it's not just the gold and the uranium, it's also a pipeline. Go figure. That's coming up. I got that video pulled up for you. We can watch this together. It's fun.
But first, a story that no one's talking about is the massive pipeline that is nearly set to go online. Now, it starts in Nigeria. It flows through Niger on its way up into Europe. Chevron and the United States have already invested $13 billion into this pipeline. And guess what, guys? After the Nord Stream pipeline destruction, Chevron stepped up production to get this up and running. Hey, we'll speed this up. We'll fast track this. And now the people of Niger are saying, wait a second. Why are we going to allow a pipeline to flow right through our country so Europe can have natural gas? You are doing nothing for us. You continue to steal from us. Sorry, no more pipeline. This is why Europe is terrified this morning. The United States already blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, put their own pipeline into action in Africa. Smart business move, right? We'll just blow up the competition. Imagine Walmart doing that to Target stores. Yeah, we're just going to blow up those stores. Now you got to shop at Walmart. And now Niger is saying, hey, sorry, you're not going to use our country to transport your natural gas into Europe. Get out of here. So Europe is facing catastrophe with no Nord Stream pipeline coming from Russia any longer, and now the threat of this pipeline being shut down through Africa. This was their salvation, this pipeline. And then add into it uranium and Europe's nuclear power. The United States gets over 50% of its uranium from Russia, despite all of the sanctions that the United States has placed against Russia. They left uranium off the list. I love this. I love that they chose to sanction every other thing, but they left uranium off the list because we need it so badly. We need it desperately. Why? The United States is so heavily dependent on Russia for uranium that Putin could literally flip a switch, literally destroy the American economy by turning off the lights. A major backup resource of uranium is Niger. The French, the United States have been essentially stealing uranium from African countries for decades. And again, these countries are saying enough is enough. We are sovereign countries. Get out of here. We are going to keep our own minerals and make our own decisions. And Russia is giving them that option right now. We want you to keep your sovereignty. We want you to be an independent country, not a slave to the West. Listen to Africa Bureau Chief Musa Ibrahim explain how the people of Africa want to gain back their wealth, their minerals, stop giving it away to America and Europe.
What people want is to gain back their wealth, back their uranium, their gold, their iron, their phosphate, their oil, their gas. And this scares the West because this means the true democracy will take place in Africa when people actually own their own land and the wealth of Africa does not go untaxed, unsupervised from the mines in Niger to the banks of Paris and the financial sector in Britain.
And he's right. Niger's coup isn't happening in a vacuum. This isn't a singular event. They're now pushing back against this neocolonialism in a larger multipolar world, saying this unipolar order that America has ruled for many, many years, seeking to keep your boot on the people of Africa, is not going to stand anymore. Africans are seeking to regain their national sovereignty. Africa saying, hey, we are rich in uranium, but we don't get to benefit from any of it because you steal it from us. We will enrich our own uranium and we will sell it to you and you'll pay us for it. No more theft. Africa is in the middle of a revolution right now. Take a look at this map just published on Friday. These are all of the African nations that have now signed military agreements with Russia. And even a few of those in white are getting ready to partner with Russia as well. Damn, that's a lot of red. Now, we'll come back to that map in a moment. But first, this weekend, we saw dramatic developments. Russian flags raised in the air throughout the continent. First to Niger, the country that started it all. Russian flags everywhere. And according to France 24 news service, the government of Niger has now signed a contract with the Russian Wagner Group for security. And they need it because the coup in Niger has entered the point of no return right now. The people rising up against France, against the United States' influence in that country. The Western powers that have controlled Niger for decades are now being pushed out. And this weekend, the military leaders now say that Niger will no longer be a European colony. And they've demanded that all French soldiers get out now, get out of here, or face the consequences. Why does the United States even have troops in this country in the first place? Well, that's a great question. So get out of here, France, and get out of here, United States. You don't belong here. Over the past few days, the United States started dropping massive amounts of military cargo right near the Niger border with its warplanes. But that threat is not stopping the people of Niger. Tens of thousands of people marching in that country this weekend, celebrating their independence and shouting no to foreign military bases, no to poverty, no to the West stealing their uranium, their phosphate, and other minerals. Get out of here now. All of the ambassadors' offices to the Niger Republic Mission Service, the United States, France, Nigeria, and Togo have all been terminated. All of their offices are now officially shut down by the Niger government. The head of the military just made this announcement. So other African nations are now showing their support for Niger and starting to say the very same thing. Get out of our country. Yeah. This weekend, the people in Senegal rising up against Western colonial governments controlling their country. The CIA, MI6, and other Western intelligence services are doing whatever they can right now, spinning their wheels, trying to hold on to power in these countries with their puppet governments. The people in West Africa are fiercely anti-American imperialism. So it wasn't a surprise then to see the country of Guinea announce they are supporting Niger as well.
La République de Guinée réaffirme par ce communiqué sa vision panafricaniste en apportant sa solidarité à la population nigérienne.
This is massive. Colonel Douglas McGregor says the people who've had their minerals stolen for years are saying enough is enough. Get out of my country.
The Africans are fed up with it. And so this is an example in Niger where a supposedly U.S.-backed government with a U.S.-trained military suddenly turned around and said, I think all of you white people need to get out of here. We've had it with you. Go away. Go. Europeans leave.
Yeah. So that's essentially what we're seeing is that them just being tired of U.S. and European involvement and intervention in their policies and politics.
Good. I am totally down with that. I am totally down with them keeping their resources. I am totally down with them kicking us out their country. I am totally down with that. Every country needs to do the same thing unless they ask for it. If they kick you out, like I said earlier, get out.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care about uranium. I don't care about none of that stuff.
I think also a lot of it has to do with the fact that I think we do need to blame the philosophies of the West as well. Because, I mean, we got everybody has the internet. Everybody has a smartphone. I don't care where you're at. Everybody either has an Android or an iPhone, and that's circulating your. I mean, I've seen Nigerians with iPhones on TikTok. And so if that's the case, then you have these nations with their leaders tuning into what's going on in the West. And in the West, we have, women can be men and men can be women, and these traditional African countries are saying, what's going on here? And then all of these Western civilizations are trying to go into Africa to not only just take its resources, but also to mold the ideological perspective of these Native Africans. And Native Africans are seeing this and they're going, no, which is why you have Uganda going, no gays. Why? I think because the West is pushing it.
Well, I've got that video. Since you brought it up, I was going to bring it up next. But that's not. It's not just the resources; it's also the culture that they're rejecting. The Western culture as well, and that's why they're being pushed closer to Russia, is because they see more eye to eye than anybody else.
We will have our morals. We will protect our children, and we are making this law. We are making this law for ourselves. We are making this law for our children. We are making this law for the children of our children. This country will stand firm. And once it passed, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, we are going to reinforce the law enforcement officers to make sure that homosexuals have no space in Uganda.
So that's another reason why the West is so freaking out, is because they've had control of this region for so long, and now they're losing grip on it. Like, it seems like everything that's like, as much as hard as they've been trying to keep a hold of things, like ever since Joe Biden got into office, it's all been falling to shit.
I mean, it was guaranteed to happen, but the thing is that these countries, you're going to see more and more publicly come out and condemn the West. Just like I think it was Uganda or one of these countries where Joe Biden threatened them with finances or aid if they don't accept homosexuality or whatever. And he said, you can keep your money, give it to your people that need it. You have homeless, you have this, that, and this. So you're going to be getting that a lot. And so the money's not going to work to influence these countries anymore. No. So the next best thing that we're good at is what? War. They'll make somebody the villain. They'll make somebody the bad guy. They'll say there's some type of genocide. There's been genocide in Africa for centuries. Did we run over there at that time? No, but this time we will run over there. We'll run over there to save the day. We'll run over there to save the day, and then give them democracy, and that's what we do.
You don't see the war what they're bringing. Do you see the war they're going to bring though? Do you see which one it is? Do you see what genocide they're going to say is taking place? Which genocide?
The genocide of the South Americans.
No, the genocide of the gays.
Or I'm sorry, the South Africans.
No, they're going to bring the genocide of the gays.
No, they don't care about white people. They're going to be saying, "Oh, look at all the gay people being killed."
Look, they're already saying they're going to. And he just said it, right? The parliament guy just said that he's going to make sure the military goes after, right, and the police goes after. Now, this is traditional. And remember, I'm not talking about America, the people. I'm talking about America, the government. This is traditional America government. You have something I want. You don't want me to have it. I used to get it, but then you came and you got wise. Gaddafi. You got wise. You're no longer needing what I have. Oh, look at what he's doing over there. Look at that. He's a genocidal maniac. Let's kill him. Oh, Saddam. Saddam is a genocidal maniac. Kill him too, because he's got what you want. Watch, like I said, though, they have no desire to let go of the restraints that they have over, but they will allow this to take place so that they can get a reason to go in. The reason that they'll get to go in is the new gay agenda to go in there and do that. But that's just the surface of it. It's not even to protect gays or that they care about gays. You're a scapegoat too. You're just as stupid as the rest of the people. So get over yourself. You're not that important. No one really cares about you or what you do in the bedroom. I just want you to be clear about this. The government don't care about what you do in the bedroom. You're a scapegoat, and they don't really care whether you live or die. Understand this first off before I finish what I'm going to say. They're going to use your plight the same way they use plight to get what they want in certain locations. Oh, we care about Africa. We'll come give us resources. Oh, we care about the gays. We'll go kill Africans. The same people that you say you support. Remember, black people. You go kill the black people to get your new agenda passed. But the real reason for going to war is not for gays, not for blacks. It's for resources.
Yeah.
And they don't care who they arm, they don't care who they train, they don't care who they kill, as long as they get what they have to get. And again, this is not the American people. This is the American government as it is now, the current iteration. We're not talking about what America used to be. We're talking about what it has become within the last 200 years.
The administrative state is the one really running the country. Everything that we're doing, every foreign policy, everything is run through the 3A letter agencies. The president isn't running the show. Congress isn't running the show. They may be impedances, but they're not the ones in charge of the daily basis and the plans that have been set in place for years, right? It is those guys, the bureaucrats that are unelected, that are controlling everything, right? They are the ones really running the show. So when a president comes in there, like they've joked about this, but I'm sure this is exactly what happens. They're all sunshine and rainbows saying, I'm going to do change and I'm going to do this and do that. And it's like, nah, here's the playbook. You follow that playbook or you end up like Kennedy. That's it. Like
That's a fact.
That's day one. They show up at your office and say, here's the game plan, follow these guidelines and you'll do okay. And you'll get out of here without any problems. You don't, we're going to make it difficult for you.
Yeah,
Right?
man. We'll
Just like the
we'll
mafia
keep
would
you
do.
we'll keep you in office for 30-something years if you just gotta follow these guidelines. Just follow these guidelines. And Coy is right on there. The three-letter agencies run amok in our country.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have. Why did they have to have oversight committees for agencies that they fund? Why does Congress have to bring the head of some agency to sit in front of Congress to question them about what that agency does? Shouldn't they already know what that agency is doing, since they have to approve a lot of the stuff?
You would
say
think, but no.
They have to approve the funds. They have to approve them going pretty much in any country. I mean, this is how it's supposed to be, but it doesn't happen that way. So like Marlon was saying, what's going to end up happening, the CIA, FBI, all these three-letter agencies are going to run amok, and Coy said it too. They're going to run amok. They're going to do what they have to do in that country. They're going to assassinate somebody, call some type of rebellion, call some type of genocide, and then they're going to be like, 911 America, we need to get over here and save these people.
They're not 911ing America president. They're 911 American contacts in the CIA or they're in some other agency, right? The Department of Homeland Security. That's who they're calling. They're not calling the president. They're calling their guy.
Exactly. So yeah, of course, 911 USA, they'll get whoever those three-letter agencies in there, and then they'll come in there and cause more of a problem. And you know that old term, they cause the problem. Here's the solution. Here we're going to send American troops and equipment, and we're going to send aid, and all your poor people that we've known have been poor for hundreds of years, we're going to come in and give them food. But you have to give us access to your X, Y, and Z. And then we'll drain them out, and then we'll wipe our hands clean and walk away and hit another country. Just like they did in Iraq, just like they did in Afghanistan, just like they did in Vietnam, just like they did in every major conflict. They got what they wanted and they left that country in shambles.
It's
facts.
It's so insane. Like, you wonder why Congress doesn't do anything about it. It's like, look what's happening to Donald Trump. He went against the administrative state so hard that they're like, okay, you want to fuck around? We're going to find out. Right? That's exactly what happened to him. And you see exactly what's going on with him. Or they'll just magically find some nasty documents somewhere and arrest you. Right?
Now,
or just say they did something.
Don't forget that we're not new to this, and we're not unique in this approach. The American government isn't. But because before this, European countries did it all the time. Look at India and look at all the Afro-Asiatic countries. They did the exact same thing. They went in, pillaged the resources, impoverish the people, put certain people at the head, and they'd have little convoys that go there, do the diplomacy thing, come back out richer. How do you think the Queen got to anyway?
No. I think
good job, FBI. Good job.
FBI
but he is right. And the Queen and the Vatican and all these heads of these states, these rich states, they're getting all the resources. They're getting everything. The Vatican is so dang rich, and they got poor people everywhere in Europe, everywhere, and they're supposed to be the head of the church. But you got all these Catholics in these poor countries, and that the Vatican can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? And it's just going to be a revolving door. We're going to see war after war after war, and everything is not about the people. It's never been about the people. It's been about the resources. Period.
Like I said, ever since Kennedy, Like nobody's been running. The only people who've been running the show are the ones that are coming up with the plans, and they're just telling everybody else what's supposed to happen. And that's basically what it's been at. There's one more video I wanted to show, and I think it encapsulated a lot of what we're talking about. It's like self-determination of Africa and wanting their own ideology to flourish.
Are you saying the minority must manage the majority, or the majority must manage the minority? Then if that whole ideology is wrong, then take democracy in a nice black dustbin bag and throw it outside. Because what you are telling us is by the people, for the people, with the people, and all those slogans you hear, what democracy represents. If we are 10 in the room and 9 people say no, and one person says yes, democracy says you go with the majority. So if we say we want to make Africa democratic, and the demographics of our democracy says no, then why do you philosophically want to manipulate the will of the majority to favor the will of the minority? Then this is where it really gets confusing to me. Are we saying this is what the people want? Or are we saying this is what the international community wants? Point number one. Point number two, in the event that I decide as a heterosexual that I want to bring up my children in a heterosexual way, why does the homosexual want to stand on the path of my own children and how I want to institutionalize them, and then pollute them with what they want? If you want to pollute these children, make your own. Because when you protect homosexual rights, you also need to become respectful of the heterosexual. And when you're promoting heterosexual, you also need to protect the homosexual. But at the end of the day, is who wants to live in which space, and how do you now interact these two communities together that are seemingly opposite in terms of mindset? America right now comes to Tanzania, comes to Ghana, comes to Zambia with 16 million. And guess what? 16 million only for Zambia. The 16 million, ask me, what is it for? What is it for? For human rights. Across the river, China and Russia coming to South Africa, ask me for what? For what? For a military training and skills sharing of security. So the Americans are more interested in a transgender, homosexual agenda around the world. They will invest their money and give you money to protect human rights. Russia and China are coming with weapons and militarization strategies so that we can protect ourselves. So I want to say this very loud and clear to the Americans. Continue on your transgender agenda. Stay there. Leave us to do politics on the other side.
Boom.
Because what we need right now is not a minority human rights activation. What we need is a societal transformation. And for you as Americans to think that we really envy that when you have an anti-lesbian, anti-gay, LGBT principle, then tourists would drop. Let me correct that once and for all, Smooth. And cut and clip this, and it must be loud and clear. Are you saying to me that all the tourists are gay? And when you hear that this is a non-gay zone, tourism will suffer? Question number one. Question number two. Are you saying that we don't have a right to expressing ourselves as Africans? Question number three. If democracy means majority rules and majority votes against a principle, then why won't you allow that to become law?
Boom.
Are you saying the minority must manage the majority, or the majority must manage the minority? Then if that whole ideology is wrong, then take democracy in a nice black dustbin bag and throw it outside.
And
because
on
what
that,
you are telling us is by the people, for the people, with the people.
Yeah. And on that point, you know, you hear democracy a lot in America. Going to when he was talking about democracy.
Our democracy.
We are a democracy. We are a democracy. We are a democracy. Okay. Let's say if America wants to be a true democracy, right? Say we're no longer a republic. We are democracy. Majority rules, period. The majority voted to ban transgenders in schools. Do you really think they would accept that? No, they wouldn't. So, don't keep calling us a democracy. And if they say one day, yes, we are a true democracy now, we will majority rules, and the vote never goes your way, because technically the majority of people don't agree with certain ways of life, even in America, across the world.
Yeah.
If the majority of Americans believed in the Second Amendment, there should be no more debate about it after that.
Yeah.
So that, you just, and I'm glad he stood his ground. I get it. I don't have a problem with certain things. That's just me. That's me. But a true democracy, like he said, you might as well throw it away, because the majority says no, and the minority still has a higher voice, a bigger voice than a majority. You're not a democracy.
Yeah. A true democracy. That's
true democracy.
That's what he's talking about, is that the West keeps prioritizing this idea of our democracy, right? Our democracy. A true democracy is that the people who don't agree with you and say, hey, this is what we're going for, right? That means they're the ones that get to lead it. So if the majority of people, especially in Africa, says, we are anti-LGBT, we do not allow it here, you have to respect our citizens' rights to say no. And that's what he's getting at, is like, Africa is a sovereign nation. If we say the majority of us agree we are not for this, and we say no, you cannot interfere, because then you're the one preaching democracy to us, but you won't actually let us use our democracy the way we see fit. And that's the problem. And that's the reason why they're getting so much pushback from Africa right now, is because they want to give them democracy, but they don't actually want them to use their democracy. Right? They want them to be democratic puppets, but not actually democratic people.
That's a good point.
Jay, you got a point?
Oh, yeah. Ultimately, I think that if we're people who espouse true conservative values, we will leave Africa alone.
Yes.
I mean, from the conservatives here in America who are, part of the pro-LGBT Legitical movement. Look, I get it. You have friends that are gay, just whatever, but Africans are Africans. They want to be Africans. They want to stay their traditional route. Yeah. You leave them alone. Then don't push your legitimate whatever talking points upon them. Let them be Africans, and we'll be Westerners and see what happens.
The problem with the entire thing is that I think I agree with the guy.
Yeah, I do too.
But he's reading the word democracy wrong.
Yeah.
This is why I'm saying he's reading it wrong. It has nothing really to do with the African continent and the amount of people in Africa. Do not forget that they do not consider individual countries on the basis of population. They look at other countries on the basis of headship at that country. So right now we're looking at maybe 30 heads at the most that have influence, that have a say. And right now, about 25 of them are for the gay agenda. So by default, while Africa might think they have sovereignty, which is why the war machine has to keep moving, they have sovereignty for themselves. But they are talking, the heads are talking about democracy on a global agenda level. Africa has no say. They are like the room of 10, and Africa is the one that says no. The others are saying yes. And so no matter what Africa says, there's going to come a time where they'll find a way to displace the head and give a yes. And this is just a matter of time. And the best way to do that is to let you go ahead and implode for a minute. You want our hands off? Good. But guess what we're going to do in the meantime? We're going to still have our hands in it. You're just not going to see it as often. And when you do step out of line and decide you're going to start implementing these things, we're going to go to the people who are really ahead of it, which is the 25 heads of all these countries. And we're going to invade and tell you that you're doing genocide to your own people. And if that means nuking all of Africa, they have no problem nuking all of Africa. You've already been peasants for however long. That's not a problem to them. If they can do it here, why wouldn't they do it there? Now, all for a revolutionary war against the global machine. No problem with that. Will it happen? Because it's not supposed to. I really do commend the people and heads of Africa for standing up as when they're doing it now, the same way we need to as well here. We need to stand our ground. Don't give in. But understand that you may not see the fruition of your not giving in. You may see a loss on a large scale while you hold on to your win on a personal level. And sometimes you just got to be okay with a personal win and let the rest of it be as it is, because at the end of it, you're only going to die with yourself.
Yep.
And your kids are going to have to suffer somewhat because they're going to be involved in the next phase. But if you pass on your willingness to fight to your children, which is where you should be putting your emphasis, they'll have the same die with my guns in my hand and my feet planted on the ground mentality that you do. So they're not going to lose. They're going to exit this world knowing that they fought. The machine is still going to keep moving on. And we just have to make sure that as far as our families go, you're not going to touch my family's morals for the generations to come. And if you kill us, so be it. But you're not going to kill us while agreeing with you. You're going to have to kill us because we disagree with you. I'm going to fight you tooth and nail. Africa is doing that. All power to them. But they're not seeing the larger picture. And if they are, they're ignoring it. The larger picture is that on a global scale, it's not going to matter. The war machine has a grip on a lot of things, and it's going to keep going. And it's going to do it by letting them fight each other in the sake of unity. And then when the genocide that they're going to call it against the gays start in Africa, they'll find a reason for World War 3.5.
I see it.
Or 4.
Oh, man. I see
it.
The 3 kicks off.
Already happening, man.
So in either way, it's something to keep an eye out. Y'all want to tackle Hawaii on Wednesday?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maui's going to be a good one.
We'll talk about Maui on Wednesday.
I mean, Oprah's doing her part.
Oprah.
So is Bezos.
They're all doing their part.
All doing their part.
The fire just magically went around their property.
It just,
I know, right?
Just they had retardant things around there. Yeah, fireproof.
Yeah, all of it.
In either case, we'll talk about it on a Wednesday. And so guys, stay tuned for that. Please like, share, and make sure you do all that stuff to this video so that it gets, because this was some good stuff that we talked about. I know you probably should be sharing the rest of our stuff too, but this one is especially good. But other than that, remember Saturday we have our Rumble event this coming Saturday. So don't miss that one. Prep for it, plan for it. Don't pick up a second shift. Spend the time with us. Or else, no, I'm just kidding. You can pick up your second shift. You can watch it later. I prefer you be here for the live, though. Mr. Lee.
So like it all, share it all, comment on all of it, and subscribe to every single one of our social medias.
We are war. Peace, people.